وبركاته. إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by God, the Creator, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no deity, there is no God but God, Allah, and Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his final messenger. O you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except in submission to Him. I would like to welcome you to the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims, an organization that was established to conduct da'wah and to educate, empower, and nurture those people who came to Islam, whether they were born to Muslim families or whether they reverted or converted, whatever word you'd like to use, to this noble faith. So we welcome you, and we have some people with us that are here for the first time today, which we would like to recognize. And so if you would be kind enough, do you mind standing and introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Daniel.
And Daniel is from Mineola, so he came a long way to be here today. And do we have anybody else here for the first time? Please, if you would, introduce yourself.
Good morning, my name is Liliana. My son Samuel and my son Ashley.
And Liliana is a dentist in Orlando, mashallah, and I haven't had a chance to find out much about the rest of the family yet, but we're very happy to have you. And I hope that all of you who have come for the first time today will make it a habit in your life to be here every Sunday and be a part of our family. There's some faces.
She is beautiful inside and outside.
MashaAllah. Okay. So, just a few announcements that I'd like to share with you today. The potluck will be next Saturday on April the 23rd at St. Luke's United Methodist Church. The invite has been sent out. Please RSVP so we'll know how many are attending. And bring your favorite food to share with everybody. The potluck. The April the 24th class, which will be next Sunday, will be held in the Whole Foods Lifestyle Room at Turkey Lake Road. And we make a contribution of $50 for that classroom. If anyone would like to sponsor that, we would be very grateful for that. The school has a function next Sunday and we're not able to use the school next Sunday. We still collect non-perishable items, unbroken cell phones, and empty ink and toner cartridges. We donate the phones to victims of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and the non-perishable items to local food pantries. And the ink and toner cartridges, we turn them in and we get money to help us defray the administrative costs of ISLAME, Islamic Society Leading American Muslims. If you're interested in being able to see the classes that are taught here online, contact Mason at this number, or if you'd like to be notified of our potlucks and any special events that we have, please contact Mason at this phone number right here. Please continue to pray for Abila's family. Please continue to pray for Faith's 93-year-old father who bounced back with resilience. Just recently, Faith had a scare and actually thought she might not get to her father on time. And people were praying for him, and he opened his eyes and said, "Let's play cards." So, you know, that's pretty amazing. You know, God is in the healing business. So, that's it for the announcements. Did I miss anybody out? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody out that here's for the first time. Perfect. Okay. Last week we began to look at, we've been doing tafsir of Surah Baqarah. And last week we spent the entire class looking at Surah 2 verse 188. Moreover, ye shall not consume one another's wealth or property unjustly, or by false means, stealing, robbing, deceiving, or for vanities, nor proffer any of it to bribe those in authority in order to sinfully consume a portion of people's wealth. You know it is wrong. And we took this verse and we spent from 11 o'clock, or actually 11:30, to just in time to play Jeopardy covering this verse. And then I wanted to take you in today to a science or or the whole study of this from the Arabic paradigm or from the paradigm of Islam, which I think would really benefit you. The key points that we looked at last week were that anything that is greater than primal need is called what? It rhymes. Greed. Whoever said that. I think it was Alina. You get bonus points today. So we also talked about how that, come on in, sister, mashallah, good to see you. The purpose of fasting is not complete until greed is restrained. And as you know, we'll be going into the holy month of Ramadan, inshallah, on the 6th of June. And I would like to repeat that, what I just said. The purpose of fasting is not complete till greed is restrained. And I will remind you again and again and again, and myself, I will remind you again and again and again, and myself, that when we begin to fast on the 7th of June, or 6th, according to the moon, that when you go to iftar, at sunset, when you go to break your fast, that inshallah you will remind yourself and others to approach that food with gratitude and without greed. In other words, I'm going to approach this table and recognize that this is the month of abstinence. This is the month of reining myself in. Not the month of indulgence. Not the month when I can see how much I can get on my plate, and how many people I can push out of line, and how many people I can be angry toward because I didn't get in line faster than they did. This is the very antipathy of the month of Ramadan. It's totally juxtaposed to the idea of restraint.
That woman pushed me away.
And so, two forms of greed mentioned in the verse: using one's property to bribe authorities or public property for personal gain, using property under our control for vanities and frivolities. Last week I gave you statistics on how many millions and billions of dollars are spent on the entertainment industry, on video games, on movies, on theater. And it's unbelievable, and it speaks to the consciousness of mankind when we can spend billions and billions of dollars watching movies, just box office movies. And yet we don't have any empathy for the poor and those indigent around us. When we can, in the month of Ramadan, when we are supposed to be restraining, when our grocery bill goes up exponentially, then it speaks to the lack of God consciousness. In Surah 2, verse 185, it says the purpose for fasting is to attain the consciousness of God, God consciousness. And it is not God consciousness that we should be extravagant. And this is what we will be getting into today. But I just sort of wanted to refresh you on just a few of the bullet points. Probably a Muslim shouldn't say bullets. But just a few of the points that I made last week. We examined areas of fraud, bribery, counterfeiting, piracy, e-commerce, computer, cyber, identity, chain fraud, and money laundering. And I gave you stats on just how vast this is in the world today, that 25% of the major corporations have a major problem with this. We talked about American Greed, the television program, an actual series about what greed has done to people. Greed and miserliness, the opposite of greed, has destroyed individuals and nations before us. In addition, it has destroyed families. And if you don't believe it, just let there be a will. Let someone die in a family, and then when the will gets ready to be read, how many families break up and they never speak to each other again? Out of greed. We have a war between moderation and exaggeration with food, money, and behavior, energy. Sometimes we are exaggerated in our energy. We are exaggerated in our storytelling. We are exaggerated in our exaggerations. People say, I've got some money to burn. And we don't have any consciousness about what has Allah said about this. But you'll have it before you leave today, inshallah. Hopefully it will inspire you and change your life. National debt, individual debt. When a child is born, if you divide the national credit card debt, they are born $30,000 in the hole because of greed, because of tabdir, the subject we're going to talk about today. People living in extravagance and people living beyond their means. Bribery and greed are injustices, and injustices that cause humans to make lawful what Allah made unlawful, and is the root cause of much bloodshed and many severed relationships. There were just a few points I wanted to make from last week, and then we'll move right into the class of today. Excessive accumulation is a form of greed. Collectors. This greed will be the cause of your ruin and destruction, just as it destroyed the people before you. If a son of Adam had a valley full of gold, the Prophet ﷺ said he would desire to have 2 valleys filled with gold. And yet, nothing can fill our mouth when we die except dust. Last week, we examined how much money is spent on non-essentials. Is it essential to have 2 lattes and 2 biscottes per day? Is it essential to have the big gulp instead of just a normal size like we used to have years ago? I don't even think they make the small Coke anymore, do they? Do they? Do they still make the small Coke? They still make it.
In the glass bottles, yeah, because they come from Mexico and they don't have any corn, glucose, whatever bad stuff is. Cane.
So, we also looked at what the Prophet ﷺ passed away with: a mule, a weapon, and a straw mat. And then I will take you now to look at this verse in Surah 17. Surah, but for those visitors for the first time, means chapter. So every time I say surah, it means chapter. In chapter 17 and verse 27, verily, spendthrifts are brothers of the evil ones, and the evil one is to his Lord himself ungrateful. So those people, and you won't like what I say today, and I'm going to ask you in advance to forgive me and still continue to love me despite the fact that I am going to probably step on toes inadvertently today. But is it necessary to have 500 pairs of shoes? Is it necessary to have 100 shirts? And this subject matter in Islam is called tabdir. And so it means wasting, extravagance, and profligacy. The religion of Islam is a religion of life, and its precepts and rules set the ground rules for human felicity and success, both for the individual as well as the society. Society is affected when someone runs up credit cards, $50,000 or $100,000, and then dies, and leaves that debt for the world to pick up. I'll never forget that once I was working in a facility and a person had found out they had a terminal illness. And they said, well, I'm going to max out my credit cards, I'm going to go on a cruise out of greed, and I'm going to leave that burden for the rest of society. They didn't say that part. They just said, I'm going to go out the way I want to go out, and I'm going to spend as much money as I can until I die. This was a person who found out they had terminal cancer. May Allah protect us from this kind of thinking. Islam has brought forth a complete program for every facet of human life and has advised balance and moderations to its followers in all affairs. Extravagance and waste means going past the proper boundaries and is the opposite of moderation. So, one reference that I found in a book that I have about tabdir is spending one's money or possessions is forbidden in Islam because these gifts from Allah should be made, can't read my writing, use of for the benefit of the individual and society. The limits of such are set by the precepts of religion, the intellect, and society. Here, waste, tabdir, and I've put two different transliterations that you might find it. Most of the time, I think you'll find it T-A-B-D-H-I-R, but I have seen it T-A-B-D-H-E-E-R, tabdir. Takes on the meaning of waste and excess in the usage of food, as well as in general matters of life. Last week, I shared with you a statistic that the average American throws away $529 per year in junk food. They buy little nabs and crackers and this and that, and then they throw it away. And yet we have 11 of the largest slums in Egypt right now, in a country highly populated by Muslims. And I guarantee you that if you were to go to Egypt in the month of Ramadan, the people will not be thinking about the less fortunate, but the streets will be lined with tables and lined with food, and people will be excessively filling their bellies and having to take medication for indigestion afterwards.
Give it to the bird.
An individual who wastes in regards to the public treasury, his life, and his day-to-day expenditures with full knowledge and awareness is considered as being far from the reality of religion, and he or she cannot be considered as being on the straight path, the Sirat al-Mustaqim. How can we say we're on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, when there are people in Orlando that do not have a bed to sleep in at night? Not because of their own wishes or own situation, but perhaps out of mental illness, or perhaps other reasons. Islam has set the legitimate enjoyment of divine blessings as permissible, and it has also set waste and extravagance as being impermissible. Yes, we have all of these wonderful things that we can benefit from, but we are not allowed to be excessive. And if we are excessive, we are the brothers of the evil one, the brothers of the shaitan, or perhaps the sisters. These limits have been set for the reason that all Muslims, in light of their social position and wealth, have a responsibility towards the human society in which they live. We live in a country today, folks, where there are more animal shelters than there are human shelters. We live in a country today where sometimes people spend more money on animals than they spend on a human in a year outside of themselves and their family. And this is why we have to look at the tafsir and what it means in the world that we live in today. We just can't read this verse externally and say, oh wow, that's interesting. What does it really mean? And how does it apply to the world that we live in? And of course that's the methodology of our class, is to look at the Word of God and apply it to our current day situation. And it really does sting sometimes, doesn't it? When we are wasteful and extravagant, we harm society and shirk our human responsibilities. In addition, we develop and cultivate negative personal characteristics which are destructive both on the individual and societal level. In order to fully understand the subject of waste, tabdir, and extravagance, israf, it is first necessary to explain these two terms and then delve into the various facets of this issue in light of the teachings and precepts of Islam. And as I am here today, I wonder, I don't want you to answer, but I just wonder how many people have even ever heard this. After class, I'd be interested in the feedback. So waste, israf. Israf means going too far. Extravagance. And I beg you, everything I'm saying is for the sake of Allah. If it is good and right, it's from Allah. If it is wrong, it is from my ego and my arrogance, and I ask you to forgive me in advance. But sometimes I go to weddings, and there are hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on these weddings. We spend $50 a plate for a breast of chicken, a scoop of mashed potatoes, and a scoop of beans. Yet, there are Muslims in our community that are homeless. The year before last, I gave $800, $100 to 8 homeless Muslims so that they could have Eid. Rajib Istihani has mentioned the following in regard to the meaning of israf. Any action which an individual performs which exceeds the limits is considered as being israf. Why do we need to go to Ruth Chris and pay $60 for a 4-ounce filet when I can go and get a filet at the store for less than $10, the very best, and cook it on my own grill? And there are people that do this every week, week in and week out. There are even people that do this kind of stuff on a daily basis, put it on the credit card, and when they die, somebody else pays for it. May Allah protect us. Israf does not relate to food and drink, not only relate to food and drink, or even to financial matters alone. It is much more comprehensive in meaning. Exaggeration is not a part of Islam. Moderation is a part of Islam. There's no ostentation in Islam. Israf can relate to any excess in behavior, emotions, or spirit. It can also relate to any excess in ethical, cultural, or social characteristics. This description makes the individual duty of a Muslim very heavy, for it brings the issue of waste and connects it with every single facet of human life. And we'll look at that inshallah today. From the explanation set forth by the grammarians and commentators in regards to the word israf, it appears that there are 3 individual factors which determine if an action falls into the boundaries of waste or not. And the 3 are as follows. We have religious impermissibility. This is because anything religiously forbidden constitutes the boundaries and limits of God, and committing forbidden actions means crossing and trespassing those borders and going beyond those limits, even if there is no extravagant spending of money involved. For example, we know that food is halal, right? But is it allowed for me to eat a 10-pound turkey myself in a setting? No. That's an extravagance. And therefore, then it becomes a sin. So the very thing that is halal can become a sin. The judgment of the intellect. This relates to spending money on things which the intellect considers as being wasteful or foolish. And we all have this. We're walking in the mall and we see that Armani suit and our mind says, you really don't need this. Our soul speaks to us, you really don't need this. And then all of the commercials flash before us, all the grandeurs of delusion and illusion. Oh, I'll be so cool if I have that. I will be the cat's meow. I'll be the best looking guy on the block. And before you know it, Satan has caught you out. And there's that credit card and the cash, the dollar signs and the eyes of the one who sold it to you. And they're rolling around in their head. And they're so high from this whole experience. And I'm not exaggerating, am I? We've all been there. We've all been there when the salesman tells us that we can't live without something. And we begin to believe it. And the next thing, we've spent $200, $300, $400, $500, and on up. Maybe $30,000 on a car that we really didn't need. The car that we have had no trouble. Brand new set of tires. Brand new brakes. But oh man, that new 8 Series, man, that thing is, have you seen it? They tell you.
Good.
Oh, it's a spirit. Listen, somebody rode a car one time and they said to me it was a spiritual experience.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It was a spiritual experience. A little bit of exaggeration, perhaps? Societal norms. Societal norms are another factor in determining waste and extravagance.
Not to me.
Not spending enough in matters which are obligatory. So it is obligatory to pay zakat. It is tabdir if you're scrounging, or even if you pay beyond your means. Not spending enough in matters which are obligatory in accordance to one's wealth and position in society is considered miserly. Miserly is called bukhil in Arabic. Right, brother? Bukhil.
It's
Bukhil. Bukhil, yes. I had a memory of that. Bukhil, yes.
It's Scrooge.
Yes. Spending too much in relation to one's wealth and position is considered as being wasteful and extravagant. Not spending enough on obligatory matters is also considered as impermissible when it involves the rights of others. If you look at Surah 9 and verse 60, there are 8 categories of people that zakat is to be given to. Yet, if somebody rocks up here in the parking lot and says, well, I'm on my way to New York, I came down here and I've mooched off as many people as I can so I could go to Disney. And I have actually witnessed this, folks. But I need a little money to get back to New York because I'm out of gas. Well, there's supposed to be a fund for that. Surah 9, verse 60. The wayfarer, those inclined to Islam, those in debt. Early in my years of Islam, I had purchased a home. And I wanted to get out of debt because I wanted to please Allah. And I wrote 1,000 Muslims and asked them, will you loan me $1,000? I did this. And not one person replied to me. I gave the whole dalil about riba and as a leader in the community, I have a higher responsibility and I will pay. I gave them even when I would pay them back. Nobody responded. Even though it's in the Quran, Surah 960. Even the da'i is entitled to a portion of that money. Do you know how hard it is for me to get money to do dawah? I cannot even tell you how hard it is for me to get money to do dawah. But it says it in the Quran. So this is a form of tabdir. People scrounging on it, well, it's okay. He can just ride his old car with 250,000 miles. It doesn't matter if he breaks down in Georgia. He'll get on a bus ticket and come back. We have this kind of tabdir that we don't even realize. The limits of normal expenditure are set by the norms of the society that one lives in. And so this can vary from individual to individual. The permissible limit of expenditure both on the personal level as well as on the family level is not the same for everyone in a given society. Let's look at something. If you talk to economic specialists, economists, they will tell you that you never should spend more than 33% of your income on your housing, your rent, or your mortgage, so to speak. Do you know what the rule was when I grew up? Because I'm a little older than most people in this room. 25%. And yet there are people that go out and max out credit cards to get the down payment and buy a house, and the house is costing them 50%. God forbid they get sick, they can't even get medical care. Or people buy these houses and expect their children to enter into tabdir, to israf, and pay for it for them. Because they're ignorant of the truth of Islam. They're ignorant about the commands, the financial commands about Islam. In this way, an individual may spend his money in a certain way and it will be considered as israf, while another individual may do the exact same thing and it will not be considered israf. We have to live in our means, folks. The one thing that I try to get all married couples to do, particularly if they haven't tied the knot yet, cut up your credit cards. Have one in case you have to rent a car, and have a limit on it. Imam Sadiq has mentioned the following in a tradition. How many are poor people who might be more extravagant than the wealthy? It was asked of him, how can this be so? Imam Sadiq replied, the wealthy individual spends out of what he has but the poverty-stricken individual spends beyond his financial position. So we have people living on the poverty level. It is very sad, but you know what happens the very first month that a freshman goes to college? When I was at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, I believe I got 15 credit cards the very first semester. So the very world targets this Isra and this Tabdir, and they target those young people trying to get a beginning. They go to that little mailbox at college. MashaAllah, I'm on my own now. I'm grown. I don't have anybody to tell me what to do. And lo and behold, there are all these credit cards. And now the world is at my disposal. And all I got to do is pay a minimum payment. What a lie from hell. And people buy into it. The meaning of the word israf in Islam does not pertain to financial aspects of eating or clothing, for if it did, it would be called tabdir instead. Tabrasi has mentioned the following in this regard. Tabdir is the spread of wealth in the way of waste, israf. Tabdir includes the spoiling, corruption, and waste of financial resources. But if money is spent in a certain way, even if it is not that much, for improving something, this is not considered tabdir. So there's a principle in Islam that we are stewards of what Allah gave us, and we must take care of what Allah gave us. But we don't get taught this stuff. There's a great man out there in the world named Dave Ramsey. He's a Christian. And he has this, cash is king and Jesus is Lord. That's his mantra. Well, we know that God is Lord. But he teaches Christians to live on a cash basis and to never spend what they don't have. So it was a principle even before Islam. According to Tabrasi's definition of tabdir, it is clear that tabdir is the foundation of israf. Israf contains a much more comprehensive meaning for waste and extravagance and wealth. For example, israf can mean excessive spending and giving charity, while tabdir cannot be used in these cases. Tabdir is used in matters where there is waste and extravagance, in matters of food, and when wealth is simply wasted without rhyme or reason. Almost every year or two, there's an article that comes out in Time, or one of the major magazines, Newsweek, about the extravagance of the royal family, or the royal families. The one I was thinking about is the one in Saudi Arabia, but the one in the UK is right up on them. Matter of fact, I was standing in line at Publix this week, and there was an article about the Queen buying a new Rolls Royce. I think it said she bought 57. I'm sure she needs 57. Maybe Heinz 57. Tabdir is used in matters where there is waste and extravagance, in matters of food, and when wealth is simply wasted without rhyme or reason. In other words, it can be said that every tabdir is israf, but not every israf can be considered tabdir. Now, I pray that you will really, really process what I'm saying today, that you will ponder on what I'm saying today, that you will reflect on what I'm saying today, that you will contemplate what I'm saying today, and it will change your life. If you really implement what you learned today from Islam, it will change the quality of your life, and it will reduce the stress in your life. I remember when I lived in Manhattan that a millionaire on Wall Street had, I believe it was like 27 million, and he lost 10 million when the stock market crashed, and he committed suicide because he only then was left, I said 27 million first, right? Minus 10 is 17 million, so he committed suicide. Yeah.
For 17 million.
And he had 17 million in the bank. Imam Sadiq was reciting the following verse from Surah 25, Furqan, verse 67. Those who when spending are neither wasteful nor tight-fisted, and moderation lies between these extremes. He picked up a handful of small stones, and while holding his fist closed said, This is the rigidness which Allah has mentioned in the book. He then picked up another handful and opened his fist and dropped them all. At this point he said, this is Israf. You just let everything go. He then picked up another handful and poured out a portion while holding on to another portion of it. He then said, this is the middle limit. You see, a wise Muslim, a Muslim who has hikmah, will always have an emergency fund. If you have questions, I'd like to ask you to write them down because it messes up the camera and we get a lot of complaints. And then what I'll do is I'll answer them after class. Okay, mashallah. There we are. Forgive me. If there's, let me know. Just say slide and I'll be glad to fix it. Okay? This is the al-mizan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about. The middle road, the balance. Those who do israf are considered as the brothers of Satan. These individuals showcase various types of behavior at different times and circumstances. Let's just see how extravagant we can be. Let's just see how much we can show off. Let's just see how exaggerated we can be. We might not say it with our lips, but we say it with our actions. If you can afford it, this doesn't apply to you. Those who do israf on purpose and with full knowledge are considered as being one with Satan. Not one with Allah, but one with Satan. An individual who wastes in regards to the public treasury, his life and his day-to-day expenditures with full knowledge and awareness is considered as being far from the reality of religion, and he cannot be considered as being on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Just another writer saying the same thing.
You know, just to quickly add.
Sir, can you add after class, brother? Because we're trying to reframe our class so that questions don't interrupt the flow of the YouTube. In Surah 7,